Resilience is a measure of well-being. Resilience is a measure of that inner ability. And I would venture to say that it's an important part of the purpose of why we're all here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Irene, and welcome to Oceanside Perspective's new series, Purpose, Why Medicine, where I speak to professionals in healthcare who have found their purpose and want to share their unique journey, experiences, and learnings with our audience. I'm here today with Dr. Patricia Arcari, a board-certified advanced holistic nurse, clinical nurse specialist in mind-body health, and practitioner of holistic nursing for over 20 years in clinical training and research capacities. Don't forget to stay till the end of this video for a meditation demonstration led by Dr. Arcari. With all that being said, Dr. Arcari, thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with me today.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
So, a central theme for this podcast is purpose, or the why behind what you do. So, what do you think your purpose is?
Life is challenging. I mean, no more so, I think, than what we've recently been going through. It's inevitable. Waves come and go. There's ups and downs. The trick is to be able to find a balance point in the middle of all of the ups and downs. And that's what meditation is. That's what yoga is again, that inner resilience that gives you what you need to manage your life and have a sense of balance through all the ups and downs. So that's why I do what I do.
That's amazing.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm.
Yeah, I hope to be able to surf well.
So, so first you just got to get on the surfboard, right? First you just got to get out there and commit to the practicing on a semi-regular basis before you can even think about being able to stand up on a surfboard, right? So,
yeah,
practice, practice.
Starting and then practicing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you've led classes, programs, and workshops for a wide variety of people, from patients to caregivers to hospital staff. What are some of the commonalities that you've noticed that everyone is struggling to deal with?
It's amazing. During those periods of greatest challenge is when we're most open to new ideas, where we're most curious about different ways to be able to live and manage. And I've been teaching meditation for over 30 years, and I can honestly say I have never been through a time when more people are more interested and more open and more willing to commit to these practices if it's going to give them an ability to deal with the uncertainty, the anxiety, the pressures, the not being able to control the world around them. So meditation and mindfulness is a very important tool to help begin to feel like there are things that you can do that can help during these challenging times. We live in a culture where we are so hard on ourselves. There's an epidemic of perfectionism that impacts so many of us that is just not realistic. One of the things that, in working with Johnny, had so many cool sayings, and you can find them all in his books. But at one point he said, so what do we call? Are we called human doers? Is that what we call ourselves as a species? No, we're not human doers. What do we call ourselves? What are we? We're human beings. And self-compassion is just that quality that gives you the space and the room to say, I'm enough. I'm doing the best I can. I am being to the fullest degree possible. It's not about performing and achieving and accomplishing at the expense of everything else. It's about first understanding who we are as human beings and being kind to ourselves and being aware of what we're, of how our actions and our sort of lives, the direction that we're going in. Is it authentic? Am I being mindful? Am I being kind to myself? Am I understanding that we're all just human beings doing the best we can? So I think self-compassion has also become, thankfully, this idea that is starting to take root in the culture so that people can just be a little kinder to themselves.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. I think, especially for the audience of this podcast, I'm going to assume that there's a lot of pre-meds and colleagues of the medical professionals that I'm interviewing who are watching our podcast. And I think those in medicine specifically struggle with perfectionism and self-compassion specifically. That's a new term that I've learned recently. I think it's kind of hard to balance. At least I can speak for myself that I would like to be compassionate to myself, but at the back of my head, I'm also like, I could be doing more. I could be working more in the time that I'm compassionate to myself, if that makes sense. So, how do you think we can balance self compassion and being able to work at our full potential?
We've all been on airplanes, and they still, to this day, as they're giving us those instructions that we've heard forever, the flight attendants tell us that in case of emergency, the oxygen mask will drop down, and you put your own oxygen mask on first. If you're traveling with little kids or anyone else, you need to put your mask on first in order to be able to help your kid with their oxygen mask, right? So the way that you make this decision is to ask yourself, if I'm not the best that I can be, how am I going to help others when I'm not operating to the extent of what I'm really able to do? So it's the old put your oxygen mask on first piece of advice. In addition to looking at the research that is just exploding in this area, there are two researchers, Kristen Neff and Chris Germer, who have actually taken Buddhist concepts, Eastern religion concepts, and moved them into how do we use those concepts to cultivate our own self-compassion. So you can look at their work, they've developed training programs to help people become more self-compassionate. So it's just that sense of, okay, I understand that I'm being a little hard on myself. How do I fix this or work with it? Your curiosity will drive you to the work of Germer and Neff, I think, as well as looking at the research that is showing us unequivocally the importance of these concepts for our own mental health and well-being. Got to
Yeah,
do
I'll
it.
definitely look into it. Thank you.
Mhm.
So, what advice would you give to aspiring professionals who are trying to find their place in the world?
If someone had said this to me at a young age, I don't know if I would have necessarily just accepted these words, because I think basically the whole concept of giving advice is totally overrated, because the way that people really learn is as a result of their own direct experiences, right? But in terms of just like general guidance, 40 years into my career, as I look back just from the stories that I've told you and the way that things have unfolded, each step along the way led to increasing sort of evolution, the concept of neg entropy, that systems grow in complexity and bring you to where you need to be. If you can just begin with a sense of trust in your own ability, in your own goodness, in your own desire to bring your talents and your skills to the world, life brings you what you need. And to have that sense of trust, along with the curiosity to be open to new ideas, is a really powerful force that will guide you to exactly where you needed to be. If someone said to me when I was, coming out of undergrad as a nurse from Boston College, that you would be teaching meditation and mindfulness and resilience, I would say, no way. But life just sort of brought those teachers and those experiences that I needed in order to be able to find my way. So trust, curiosity, and trust.
Definitely resonates with me. I spent a couple of years just being hesitant about the field of medicine and whether I'm good enough or this is the right path for me and things like that. But it was only after like the teachers came into my life at the best time and having these experiences, like being able to speak with professionals like you through this interview series, that I think everything just falls into place when it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's amazing. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. And so already your life is your teacher, right? You can look back
Mm-hmm.
on this whole trajectory that you've been through to say, this is my life giving me what I need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
So,
great.
when thinking about integrative health, there's a lot of similar and related words that come up, which can be kind of confusing for those who aren't familiar. So, to set the scene for our conversation about complementary and alternative medicine, let's define some common terms. So, what is conventional or Western medicine?
Western medicine is a system based on developing an understanding of the body through understanding the various parts, seeing that they stand alone and treating the problem based on symptoms. Now, complementary medicine initially was set up, as the name implies, to be a complement to our Western system. You know, when we first started talking, we were talking about how meditation really helps us access our own sort of inner strengths and abilities, our own inner resilience as a tool to help us be healthy. Complementary medicine is just that. It is a system of tools and way of working with the individual and their own sort of behaviors to help complement the traditional Western system. Dr. Benson used to describe it, he called our healthcare system like a three-legged stool, right? And on that three-legged stool, there are the tools of surgery and medicine. And then the third leg of that stool, the complementary part, is health behaviors, is our own body's ability to be a partner in how we heal. So that's complementary. Now, alternative, you know, part of the problem is that as we are learning about sort of these tools that help manage health and illness, the terms have evolved. So initially it was complementary, and then alternative medicine sort of grew up to mean a system that was an alternative, eschewing Western medicine, and just using treatments that really didn't have a lot of evidence behind them at the time. And but people were sort of in many cases um, weren't able to be helped by traditional Western medicine. So we're looking for anything that would help them heal. And again, the alternative branch of medicine didn't have any empirical evidence to support that these strategies worked, but people were looking for anything that they could do to feel better. And at one point, the NIH branch of complementary and alternative medicine, we used to call it CAM, right? But those two terms are pretty outdated now, as we have come to understand this branch of working with folks using mind and body and spirit, the three pieces of who we are, to come to help us not only heal, but become more whole, manage our illnesses in a way that allows us to sort of really become the best versions of ourselves as possible, not just getting rid of the disease, but also getting to higher levels of health and well-being. So integrative health is a system of health that uses mind, body, spirit. The individual actively participates in it. We don't look at the body as isolated organ systems. We see how the body works together holistically. We start with interventions that are at the least invasive level and then ramp up to more and more invasive. And it really is done in a sense of partnership between patient and practitioner, and really the whole of the community. when we went through COVID, I think people really profoundly understood the importance of social support in health and wellness, right? In health and illness, because so many people were so isolated. And that's when we started to see anxiety levels just skyrocket. Well, integrative health recognizes that, we're all part of the whole. We're not isolated beings. And so social support is such an important piece of what not only makes us healthy, but brings a quality of life that, that we are all sort of looking for.
Yeah, that was a very good summary. I think I learned a lot from that explanation as well. That
Mm.
CAM, or complementary and alternative medicine, is now somewhat of an outdated term.
Yes.
And we're moving towards integrative health as that holistic definition. I'm also hearing that integrative health seems to bring the human piece more
Mm-hmm.
into healthcare. I
Mm-hmm.
think Western medicine and the hospital systems that we know of, they're very good at treating disease, but humans aren't disease. There's the other half that humans are, and I think that's great that we're bringing um, the human aspect and the spirit and all of that into integrative health.
Yes, I think you nailed it, Irene. The other piece, that pillar of integrative health, is, of course, it is evidence-based, as compared with alternative. The interventions that are part of an integrative model are evidence-based. Having said that, when you are trying to determine which variables cause which outcomes, it's it's a little more straightforward when you're looking at a mechanistic model like Western medicine to try to isolate, right? But as you said, integrative health looks at the whole person. So that opens up the field to have to look at so many variables of why people are responding in the ways that they are, why the body and mind are impacted in different conditions of health and illness. So, how do we study a phenomena that has 250 variables that could impact it versus, really narrowing our focus in a quantitative methodology that seeks to isolate like one or two causes? It's a real challenge. And so that's why some of these strategies are sort of slow to make it into mainstream literature right now. It's because we are tasked with needing to not only measure, but to understand the impact of the individual on the outcome, right? So the research methods that have really been important in building up Western medicine, like the quantitative model, the empirical model, they don't fully explain phenomena in the way that an integrative model says is important, right? So my very first piece of research, in my doctoral program was trying to teach people meditation as a way to help quit cigarette smoking, right? Because there was evidence that showed that there was an area of the brain that got stimulated when you smoked cigarettes. That was the same area of the brain that came online when you were meditating. So I thought, great, well, let's just teach people these strategies. And I did some EEGs, looked at the brainwave patterns, and then said, okay, we'll teach them meditation, and then we'll have the same brainwave patterns of relaxation with meditation as the cigarettes accomplished. And lo and behold, my hypothesis was not supported. The data did not show that people who learned meditation quit smoking at lower rates. So I thought, why didn't this work? What was going on? So I had my advisor in my doctoral program, who was like a kindred spirit. She said, well, we got to go in and look and, just ask the questions. Dottie's like, you just go back in there and you interview them and you say, well, why didn't this work? What was going on? What prevented this from happening? And so I had to, even though I thought I would be graduating this month, I ended up graduating much later because I had to go back in and ask the question, why? And that created, a mixed method study. I needed the qualitative data from the person to be able to connect it with the quantitative data of, rates of quit and all that to truly understand the phenomena. And as it turns out, what I learned was just asking people to quit smoking was stressful enough. If you're trying to add a new behavior on top of that, they were just overwhelmed and they just weren't meditating. So anyway, the research designs, methodologies that have been funded by the NIH for decades and are the basis of a lot of again, the amazing treatments that we have are not necessarily adequate to explain the integrative interventions that form the foundation of this way of practicing.
Yeah, so it seems like the research aspect needs to expand to incorporate the different variables that complementary medicine bring.
Right. So the brain is considered the master organ of the stress response, right? And the stress response is the physiology that underpins so many of the chronic health conditions in our time. So much of, the inflammatory response that's been linked to just about every chronic health condition that's epidemic in our culture right now. The stress physiology is the start of that process, right? How do we measure everything that's happening in the brain? How do we measure what people's thoughts are? How do we measure the emotions that are generated from those thoughts? How do we measure the impact of your social environment once you're in anxiety? I mean, there's so many pieces that are at play in the fundamental physiology that we used to think was pretty straightforward and explainable just by, cause and effect, that it's a big task. It's definitely underway. It's definitely being funded, but not nearly to the degree that, traditional research paradigms are still being supported.
Yeah. So how much do you think integrative health is due to the placebo effect?
I think that's a great question. That gets to first a definition of what the placebo effect is. So placebo has been for so long in the sort of conventional wisdom has been it's sort of been considered like a disparaging term, right? Oh, that's just placebo. Well, placebo is getting at the brain's control over everything else that happens in the body. Placebo is belief, right? And so placebo isn't just placebo. Placebo is an important variable to be looked at in terms of the whole. So if someone believes that this treatment is going to work, then that belief all by itself is a therapeutic modality. Does that make sense? Because it then initiates a whole cascade of physiology that supports this belief. So do I think it's a part of the integrative model? Absolutely, I do. Do I think it's an important therapeutic part? Absolutely, I do. And one that we need to continue to be curious about because we still don't understand all of the ways that placebo works, but it absolutely does. So hopefully you never, again, I don't know if you use the word just placebo, but that's an adjective that doesn't really go along with that noun of placebo because it's a powerful mechanism. It's
Absolutely.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Dr. K, who is a very popular psychiatrist on YouTube, argued that the placebo effect encompasses mechanisms that we just can't explain or haven't discovered yet. So we shouldn't be so quick to dismiss the benefits of placebo.
I completely agree.
So, in your opinion, how will AI impact integrative medicine?
I think it has profound implications for being able to deliver information for sure. I recently put together an anxiety toolkit for Dana-Farber, and I was able to use AI because I'm familiar with the 30 years of research and can look at all the information that was generated when I asked specific questions about specific mechanisms for controlling anxiety. So when ChatGPT, gave me its description of what these things were, I had my own sort of knowledge to be able to fall back on and say, that's true, but that's not. that's true, but that's not. And so, at least in 2024, the main argument is that there's still so many glitches in the system that you can't just accept what's coming out now, because it is strewn with errors. And I can, definitely speak to that. I think that its primary purpose will be as a supplement to the clinician. Social isolation as a risk factor for disease, right up there with cigarette smoking, right? So we cannot eliminate humans from this equation because we need each other and support. But as a supplement to a caring and therapeutic relationship, I think it's a really important, almost leveling piece of technology that's going to be able to disseminate um, health information, you know, far and wide. And so that's a good thing, but not exclusively.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. AI is very much a complementary or supplemental piece to medicine at this point. Don't know how
Mhm.
it's going to evolve in the future, but I
Mhm.
guess we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
exciting. It's exciting. It's every day. There's, there's more and more and more. So it's
Mhm.
continuing that sort of, again, that being open to see how it unfolds.
So, what does the future of integrative health look like to you? And if you could design your ideal system, like what would integrative health look like in the future?
Wow. So first there's access, right? I can remember from the beginning of, my work in this area, mind body integrative health, was sort of, it was a tool that seemed to be accessible to only certain segments of the population, because of um, not just, location of programs, but if you're struggling to put food on the table and a roof over your head, your ability to access these strategies and these tools is limited because you're just surviving, right? So we have to figure out a way to bring these tools, this philosophy, these resources to everyone wherever they're at, speaking in language and communicating according to the values and where they're at in their lives. So just, again, a much broader reach, number one. Number two, getting into the politics of it. We talked a little bit about, why meditation, mindfulness, integrative health, why these interventions are important in terms of, helping people to understand that there is a strength, a resilience, a wisdom, a capacity inside all of us for our own health and well-being, right? We need to elevate this idea that every human being has within them these qualities. It's not just reserved for, these people or these people, and that this concept of connection and caring and love for all needs to be at the heart of this service that we're calling healthcare, right? And we need people to understand that valuing and recognizing the innate goodness of every human being is uh, is important if we're going to continue as a world, right? So I think that these integrative tools become a way to understand that really important concept. That's number two. Number three, I work in a place that we are so fortunate at Dana-Farber because of the population that we work with. Cancer is almost ubiquitous now. Everyone either knows someone as a family member or been through themselves the cancer experience. So there is an open-heartedness to that we were just talking about, to people going through this experience. And at Dana-Farber, We have tremendous philanthropy. People give to Dana-Farber to be able to provide these programs to patients. I mean, my own position was fully funded by a philanthropist because um, because she understood the importance of the work. This needs to be reimbursed, but it needs to be reimbursed by insurance companies so that we don't have to depend on philanthropists to pay for it. It needs to be, all of these services need to be paid for by insurance, just like your mammogram is, or your colonoscopy, or your high blood pressure medicine. It needs to be funded. And then maybe once the funding is there, then we can have a much broader consensus in the field, meaning all healthcare professionals will recognize, appreciate, and understand the importance of a holistic approach to how we treat people in times of sickness and health.
So I'm curious about meditation. It's almost become a buzzword, especially in social media and with the rise of meditation apps and online programs. People often think about meditation as sitting down and trying your best to do nothing for a few minutes. What's your perspective on meditation and why is it helpful?
So, first of all, it might look like someone's doing nothing, but nothing could be farther from the truth. There are two parts of what makes something meditation. The first part of being able to meditate is that you determine a point of focus. You decide where you're going to be paying attention, where you're going to direct your conscious mind, right? So you can decide to focus on the breath, which is probably the most common place that people start when they're learning to meditate. So you make the feeling of breathing in and breathing out your point of focus, and you attempt to just be present with that focus of breathing. You can also choose to focus on a word or a prayer or a phrase, repeating it over and over again in your mind, like a mantra, and then just stay anchored in that space of consciousness with the mantra. So backing up a little bit, the Buddhists who really, I consider like our first meditation teachers, they describe the senses as a great anchor for attention for this first step in meditation. So anything that's happening in the senses in the body. So the sense of feeling the sensations in the body is a good point of focus. So we've said breath is feeling the sensation of breathing in and breathing out. Can you think of anything else that is sort of connected to meditation that involves putting your attention on the senses, the sensations of the body? So yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, those are all meditation exercises because you're focusing on the sensations, the feelings in your body as it's moving in a moment to moment way, right? Some people focus on the sense of hearing. So they'll listen to music or chant or anything that allows hearing to be the thing that you're paying attention to can be a good anchor for meditation. Some people use this visual, like some people will look at a candle and keep their attention focused on a flickering candle or even a piece of art or anything or the sky or, again, during the pandemic, people going into nature was an important tool to help manage the stress of the pandemic, right? Why was that meditative? Because you were just focusing on what you were seeing in the beauty of nature. So nature is also a vehicle for meditation when we pay attention to what we are seeing. Okay, so step number one, you decide your point of focus, and that's where you try to keep your attention. So step number two follows right after step number one. And I bet you know this, everyone listening to this knows. What happens when you decide, I'm going to focus on my breath? or I'm going to focus on this pose, or I'm going to focus on listening to this music. What happens?
The mind is starts
Exactly.
drifting.
Exactly. And that's the point, right? So, step number two is noticing that your mind has wandered away, is no longer in that space where you're trying to pay attention, but has taken you into so many other things that are not where you were attempting. And you know what? That's normal. That's the way the mind works. And many people, when they say, okay, I'm going to start to meditate, I'm going to do this breath, and 5 minutes in, find themselves, thinking about the paper that they're writing or what they're cooking for dinner or, what they're watching on Netflix tonight. 5 minutes in, they see that happening and they say, oh, I can't do this, right? And try again the next day, and the same thing it happens. And then by the third day, you say, forget this. I just can't meditate. My head won't stay still. So the problem there is that what you're actually doing is step two of that meditation is noticing that the brain is always trying to hijack. You're becoming familiar with the way that the mind works. And so over time, the more you see it, the more you kind of experience it, the more you can say, oh, there I go again, thinking about how to cook the chicken tonight. It's what's happening. I'm not going to give myself a hard time. I'm just going to say that's what my brain is doing. I'll stay with it for as long as I want, but eventually I'm going to let that go and come back to feeling the breath because the breath feels so much more relaxing. All right. So, two steps in meditation: deciding on a focus, and when your mind wanders away, just without giving yourself a hard time, coming back to the point of focus. And then over time, you become familiar with the ebbs and the flows and the way that it works and how it feels in the body when you're focused versus when you're worrying about your paper. And you're just present with what is. You're not trying to force it. You're not giving yourself a hard time. You're just seeing what's happening in a moment to moment way, looking at it, feeling it, and then deciding to come back to a focus. Think about it as that oxygen mask. Think about it as taking the time, because it will enhance the quality of your moments and bring a more relaxed, efficient you. Now, again, way back when we were first teaching people to do this meditation, Dr. Benson said, so people have to meditate 20 minutes a day, twice a day. And that was just wicked unrealistic, right? I mean, it's just people weren't able to do that. So then we cut it back to 20 minutes a day, once a day. Do the best you can. So that time requirement has been a big barrier to people thinking if I don't have the time. But are you familiar with an app called Headspace?
Yeah.
I love Andy. I love that app. And I love that he has really introduced this idea of 5 minutes is enough. If you only have 5 minutes, 5 minutes is enough. And it grows on itself. And the more you do, the more comfortable you get, the more you can increase the time. But don't let time be a barrier to just trying to do a little bit each day, because what you're doing is you're developing a new behavior. You're creating a new habit. You're building a muscle of meditation. And so you want to make sure that you get, your reps in. You want to make sure that you are able to get to that mental gym as much as possible to build your capacity to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think the hardest part is starting, and then eventually when you build the habit, when you have the habit, it's like second nature. But it's the process of getting there, of like,
Mhm.
I don't want to be doing this right now, just sitting here and focusing on my breath. I could be, doing this, that, or the other, right?
So that's an important point, Irene, because in addition to sort of like hearing from the culture about how important this is, hearing from me about how important it is in people's lives. We talked about the importance of the individual experience. Like you've got to have something, uh, some kind of outcome that shows you that it's worth your time, right? It's worth the bang for the buck. And the only way that you can have that experience, unfortunately, is to start to put the time in, and you see in your own body, you see in your own behaviors, you see in your own experiences the difference between how you approach something when you're feeling calm, focused, and relaxed versus how you deal with life if you're feeling frenetic and reactive and not coming from that space of calm. You have to understand, and this is a big part of, my own teaching with my patients, with my clients, is you have to see this practice as something that's going to make a difference in your, in your day-to-day lives. Like, you have to really be able to look at it and say, well, I handled this differently because I felt a sense of calm because I could be present in the moment with my breath versus reactive, right? It's not an esoteric practice. It's a very fruitful, important, essential component of wisdom in our lives. And we just have to access it with practice. You get there. So,
Well, a lot of the things that we talked about today, they seem very profound and just getting back to your inner voice. And
you're getting at a very important point, because we live in a culture that tries to tell us that the answers are out here, right? That these are the smart people who are telling you how you should do things. And the goal, I think, of our human evolution is to eventually get to that space where we recognize our own inner guides, our own inner wisdom, our own inner light. And that over time becomes the expert, the go-to, the place where we make decisions about how we're going to be as human beings and the paths that we take.
do you think that there's more stress now than in the past, or do you think that the younger generations these days have a harder time countering or managing their stress than older generations?
I think that's a great question. And believe it or not, people are just more aware. They're paying attention. They're aware of their mental health. They're aware of, what feels right and what doesn't. They're aware of maybe the way that I'm doing things isn't necessarily making me feel good. And awareness is the starting point for everything. Like, you can't accomplish anything, you can't create anything, you can't realize your goals, or even if your goal is to just to have a really great tasting lunch, you can't do anything without having a first sort of the first step of paying attention to what's happening as you're doing it, right? That awareness. So people's levels of awareness about anxiety or discontent or uncertainty is an important starting point to being able to create the kinds of quality of life and things that they really do want to have present in order to have a level of well-being.
Having more awareness means that you're seeing a lot more the issues or the
Yes.
things that you're the discontent. And I think there is a lot of pushback or misunderstanding between generations, in that some people don't understand, like, why are the younger generations, quote unquote, like more sensitive, or they are more aware of things going on with themselves and the society around them. I don't know, like, what do you think is the next step after awareness? Like, what could people do to mitigate their stress levels?
Take action, some kind of action. We have a model with a coping model, like a three-step process for how you generally help people figure out how to manage stress, right? So the first step is awareness, to know that it's there. And then the second step is, if it's a problem, if it's a situation that you have some control over, then you directly problem solve. Find something that you can do that can help you feel like you're responding to the situation versus just reacting to the sort of life as it happens. And then the next step is maybe even a little more challenging, but it's the concept of acceptance. It's happening. Do I want to rage and expend my emotions forever against it? Or is there at some point I need to just accept that this is what is, and how am I gonna manage it, right? And find a group of people, like-minded people that you can sort of vent, and that again, that whole social support piece. Together, we can do anything.
In a sense, I think that reminds me of the stages of grief. Eventually, you go towards acceptance, except there's some ebbs and flows, and there's different ways to get to that end stage. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, good analogy. It is true. I hadn't really thought about that as the last phase of Kubler-Ross, but it is, because acceptance is such a huge but wicked challenging thing. I mean, acceptance doesn't mean that you just kind of roll over and just, say, "Oh, I don't care." Another important meditation teacher in my life drilled that mantra in. Given what is mine to do, right? So given what is means I'm accepting that it's happening. I'm not going to waste energy denying it or rallying against it, or, but I'm saying I'm accepting that it's here. Given that it's here, what can I do? What is mine to do? You decide.
yeah,
So,
kind of
mm,
giving that action back to the person,
yes,
giving more
yes,
control.
yes, exactly.
Well, during your time at Dana-Farber, you led a book club called
Mm.
Mind Body Book Discussion. What are the top three books that you would recommend to our audience to read regarding the topics that we talked about today?
Well, I love this question. Um, the first book that I would recommend is one of the first books by John Kabat-Zinn that I have ever read, and it's called Wherever You Go, There You Are. And it's a book on mindfulness, but it's also a book that uses like everyday life experiences to describe how to be mindful. And it just takes this esoteric concept, and he's a brilliant storyteller. So it's filled with stories of how he's used mindfulness tools to manage his life. I'm not going to give it away, but one of my favorite chapters is called Cleaning the Stove with Bobby McFerrin, where he describes listening to music as a way to be able to accomplish all of the tasks in our day that we really don't want to do, how using mindfulness can turn any task into an opportunity for joy. So that's number one. Number two, there's a Vietnamese monk. He just passed away over the past couple of years. His name is Thich Nhat Hanh. He's such a prolific author, and he actually has been a teacher for many of the meditation teachers who are currently writing now. And so it's hard to find just one or two books from Thich Nhat Hanh, but the first book from Thich Nhat Hanh that I would recommend is called The Miracle of Mindfulness. Again, another sort of descriptor of how to take these esoteric concepts and really integrate them into your lives in a useful way. Second book that I can't help but from Thich Nhat Hanh but mention is a book he wrote called No Mud, No Lotus, which has been really useful with the particular population at Dana-Farber, just describing how life's challenges really do create opportunity for blooming in beauty and resilience. And then the third book, it's really profound. It's dense though. It's a book by another favorite teacher of mine called Jack Kornfield. You might be familiar with Jack. He's just an amazing teacher, again, in the Buddhist tradition. And the book is called The Wise Heart, a guide to the universal teachings of Buddhism, where, again, another kind of how-to to really bring these concepts into your life in a way that makes a difference in how you're living.
Great recommendations. I'll definitely check them out. I think my mom actually bought a couple books from the second author that you mentioned.
Big
And
Nahan. Yes, I think
yes,
it was one of your mom's favorite. I thought like when we were talking about mindfulness, he really spoke to her.
mhm,
So yes, yeah,
yeah,
and they're
def
little. They're just little books. You should check them out.
yeah,
You have
definitely.
Mhm.
We've learned so much from this conversation today, and now we have a chance to apply what we've learned in a quick meditation exercise. Dr. Akari, is there anything that we need to do before we get started? Maybe sit down or
Point of focus, we're going to use a focus on how our body feels sitting and then how our body feels as we breathe. So just if you're not already, put yourself in a chair, comfortable chair where your body can just totally let go. And as you find that space where you can sit comfortably for the next 15 minutes, invite your eyes to gently close if it feels comfortable for you. And as you close your eyes, you're using that as an invitation to bring that sense of attention even more deeply into the body. So you're letting go of all the external doing, all of the tasks, all of the needing to be someplace or do something, and you're just settling into this inner space of being here, sitting in the chair. So begin to notice the feelings in your body as it's held now in the chair, noticing the whole of your body as it's held. Maybe beginning to feel the sense of comfort as your body can just let go. You feel that sense of holding. You feel that relaxation that is present when the body can simply be held here, now in the chair. And from that awareness of the feelings in the whole of your body, let's move our attention to specific areas of the body where you're feeling a sense of contact. So let's begin by directing your attention right into the bottoms of your feet. Your consciousness, focus, attention is something that the mind can direct. So direct your focus into the bottoms of your feet and begin to notice what sensations are here as you simply feel the bottoms of your feet. You might begin to notice feelings of warmth. There might be a sense of tingling. You might notice a feeling of heaviness. You might feel the presence of the floor beneath the feet holding you. Just become aware of sensations as they're moving and changing in a moment-to-moment way here at the bottoms of your feet. Not thinking about your feet, but feeling the sensations here, now, in your feet. And then if you haven't yet, take your hands and place palms down on your lap, on your thighs. And just begin to notice the sensations that are here in your thighs right now. You might feel a sense of connection between the backs of your thighs and the chair. You might become aware of the feelings of heaviness on the tops of the thighs where your hands are resting. Shifting attention into the hands themselves, you might notice a sense of warmth, heaviness. So you're not trying to change the sensations, you're just simply noticing the feelings that are here right now as you pay attention to your hands as they rest. And then become aware of your back. Shift your attention so that you're simply noticing any sensations that are here. Feeling maybe the chair that supports the back. Becoming aware of your posture, that sense of the skeleton supporting the back. If you need to, perhaps you can straighten that posture a bit so you're holding on to a sense of erect dignity, honoring the body, the moment, just as you are. And then shifting focus once again, moving even more deeply into the body itself as you begin to notice the feeling of breathing, becoming aware of your in-breath and feeling your out-breath. Just giving all of your attention and all of your care right now to the sensation of breath as it moves in and moves out. Just noticing one breath as it gently follows the next. Being present with the flow of breathing. And if you notice that the mind has wandered, that you find yourself caught in a thought stream, just notice that. Know that it's okay. It's what the mind does all the time. You can see that thought in this space of awareness, allowing it to be, maybe labeling it a thought, a worry, a plan. And when you're ready, you can just release the thought as you move your attention back to the feeling of this breath. In breath and out breath. Simple awareness of breathing. Feeling in the body where the breath is. As you breathe in, you might notice that the belly or the chest rise within breath. And as you breathe out, you might feel the belly or the chest fall. Or maybe that place where you're feeling your breath most strongly present right now is just at the tips of your nostrils. So you're breathing in with your attention anchored here at your nostrils. You're breathing in through the nostrils, feeling the coolness of air within breath. And as you breathe out through the nostrils, perhaps noticing how the air is gently warmed. Just breathing wherever you're feeling breath strongest. It's okay. Just being present with this breath. And this breath. Noticing the breath come and go. Moment by moment. And breath by breath. Breathing into the stillness. Breathing out. Sinking a bit deeper into this space of relaxation and comfort. Just being just as you are right now. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I calm my mind. Simply being in this present moment. This is a moment of ease. And as we come to the final moments of this time for meditation, see if you can bring this sense of awareness, this calm back with you. And when you feel ready, come back to a sense of sitting in the chair where we began. And only when you're ready now, you can invite your eyes to open.
Wow, that was a really beautiful way to start my day and bring this interview to a close. Thank you for that. During this conversation, we've reflected on your journey to healthcare, answered some common questions about integrative health, and learned about and practiced meditation. Before we close, I have one last question for you. If you could, what's something that you would like to tell your younger self?
We talked about it a little earlier on. Um, just trust that the path is your path and that your life will bring you to that place that is the space of your highest good. And don't sweat the small stuff.
That's something I need to hear as well.
Mm.
Thank you for your time, Dr. Akari. I truly learned so much from hearing your inspirational story and wisdom on integrative health. Thank you, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Irene. It was my pleasure. Good luck with everything. Take
Thank you.
care.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Remember to like and subscribe if you want more content like this, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below about what questions you want answered about the field of medicine.